Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Manifesting Muslimah Ramadan series, Aligning with Allah. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about a subject that can be quite triggering to some of you. And it is specifically for that reason we're also going to be talking about it, because this will probably ring true for many of you. And even if it's not you directly, you might know someone who is doing this, and then, you can perhaps in a very friendly way send them this episode so they can have a little listen to it and inshallah kind of knock them out of this whole thing. And that is how you may be outsourcing your relationship with Allah and what that looks like and how to stop it. Okay, so let's just delve right into it. So for those of us who have been raised in a Muslim household with Muslim mom and dad, maybe even like the society around us, whatever it may be, we have been raised very much with our mum and dad specifically having to tell us what Islam is, but more importantly, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. And that is their responsibility. When you're a parent, that is your responsibility. If you're a parent, that is your responsibility with your children. And so it's a big responsibility, of course. And listen, nobody's going to be doing it perfectly. But they have a lot of good intentions. So do you probably with your children. And alhamdulillah for that. May Allah reward all the parents for all the hard work and deeds that they do. The problem in this case is not a problem from the parents, by the way. This is not them. We're not talking crap about parents in this episode. But the problem is that many people take what they have been taught as children from their mom and dad, and then they never question it again. They just kind of run with it, and then they build the rest of their foundation on that. And the problem with doing that, so again, like we're coming back to you, sis, okay? We're talking this, you and me, sis. We're taking responsibility of our own. We're not going to put this sticky booger and add it onto our mum's abaya. We're not doing that, okay? This is about the fact that this relationship that our mum and dad or our aunties and uncles or society around us as we were growing up gave us, we're not questioning it. We're not building further on it. We're just trusting it, and then we're running with it. Okay. And the problem is that what we're actually getting in that moment is, we get a lot of helpful information. We get an introduction, but we very much still need to build on that relationship, because we're getting our mum or dad's perspective of who Allah is, their understanding of who Allah is, their projected fears about Allah, experiences, traumas, whatever else that they may have in their baggage from their experience and personal connection with Allah. They're going to give that on to you. That is who they know Allah as. And again, we're not talking any kind of crap about parents, because again, they're just going to do the best that they know, but they will tell you what they know. And if what they know is guilt and shame, and that is their relationship with Allah, that is what they're going to give to you, right? So that is what's going to happen with you just taking on the information that your parents or your sisters, older sisters, siblings, cousins, whatever it might be, are telling you about Allah. Again, there's nothing wrong with this. This is the responsibility of having children. If you're a parent, that you have to introduce Islam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you start getting older, it is now your responsibility to take the information that you have been given and build upon it. Now it's your responsibility to create that lifestyle, to create that belief, to strengthen that relationship, so on and so forth. The problem starts when most people, as you get older, don't do that. I was raised a Muslim. I know already. Like, I pray 5 times a day. I fast every Ramadan. I'm good. But you're not really good, because again, your relationship with Allah is built on this outsourced information that everybody else has given you. And perhaps even as you're getting older, because you're so used to other people telling you who Allah is and what Islam is and isn't, you're still, when you're lacking information, potentially not going to Allah directly, you're going to the local imam. You are seeking out scholars. You are talking to your mum and dad again about it. Maybe you're asking that friend of yours that you feel like is a bit more pious than you. And so again, you're outsourcing your relationship to other people, right? I use this example that you want to get to know someone. You go to work, there's a new person who started at work, and you're like, wow, that looks like a real cool person. I really want to get to know this person. Now, what you would probably do, or should do at the very least, is you should go to that person and speak to that person. Hi, who are you? What's your name? What do you like? What don't you like? And get to know them through your own personal experience with them and first-hand experience. What you don't do is go and talk to every other colleague but that person and get their experiences of who that person is. So the first person you speak to are going to be like, yeah, that person is really nice. I had lunch with her the other day and she was really sweet and she shared her muffin with me or whatever. And so I really like her. And then you go to the next person and they say, oh yeah, actually, no, I actually asked her for that muffin and she already given it to somebody else. And like, she knows that I really like blueberry muffins and she didn't think of me first. And I thought that was really selfish and stupid. And she didn't think about it. So I have a really bad experience with that person. And then another person says, actually, I grew up with her, but she did something to me when I was a kid. So I actually really don't like her. And, you know, like you'll have like all of these random experiences from other people of like who this person is based on their personal experience with that person. And some of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be bad, but ultimately you're not getting that first-hand experience. Your whole entire understanding of who this person is and your relationship with that person is built on what everybody else thinks or has experienced with this person. Now, you and I both know, as the grown, intelligent adults that we are, that of course is stupid, right? Nobody does that. You're probably thinking to yourself, but I wouldn't do that. That sounds stupid. Like, no, I would go and talk to that person. Of course you would. Why don't you do that with Allah? Because that is what tends to happen for a lot of people when it comes to Allah, is like, oh, who am I to talk directly to Allah and have a personal, private relationship with Allah? I should have other people tell me how to have a relationship with Allah, what is respectful in my relationship with Allah, what is correct in my conduct with Allah, and so on and so forth, instead of saying, that is your relationship and this is my relationship. And for whatever reason, somewhere down the line, it became so acceptable for all of us to outsource our relationship to Allah to people that we deem to know more than we do, and just accept what they think and say and perspective and whatever, and be like, that has to be the truth because they know more, so I'm just going to adopt what they're saying, instead of saying, but that's your experience and I love that for you, but I need to curate my own relationship with Allah and it may look slightly different to yours because I'm in a different stage in my life, or I need something different from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's the very, very popular hadith where Allah says, I am as my servant thinks of me. So why are we looking to have other people's perspective of who Allah is when we can have our own? Because I might not need the Allah right in this chapter of my life who is going to be the harshest of judges. While I know he will be the harshest of judges on Yawm al-Qiyamah, maybe right now I need the forgiving Allah. Maybe right now I don't need the forgiving Allah, I need the one who provides. Maybe I don't need the one who provides, maybe I need the one who is compassionate. Maybe I don't need the compassionate, maybe I need something else. But ultimately, my relationship with Allah changes based on my needs, because he's my Allah, he's my friend, he's my provider, he's my confidant, he's my everything. So I'm not going to take what other people's understanding and relationship with Allah is, because it may not apply to where I am in my journey. Sometimes I don't need a patient Allah, but sometimes I need an Allah that creates urgency in my life. Sometimes I don't need Allah to create urgency, but I need the patience, the calm, the rest, whatever it might be. That is why it's so important for us to create a very intimate relationship with Allah that is based on our own understanding of Allah and our own relationship with Allah, getting to know Allah. When we outsource our relationship with Allah, we get what we get, and that's what we get, and then we're like, no, but that's who Allah is. But is it though? Is it though? Not always. That is the Allah that person gave you in that moment, but you have every right to have a different side of Allah. Allah is so multifaceted that we can't even comprehend it. He can be everything all at once to everyone. And so sometimes that can feel really difficult for us to comprehend, like, how can Allah both be this and that? But that's just the way he is. We don't ask the questions on that. We just trust, because Allah knows better. But this is why it's so important for us to take the time not to outsource our relationship with Allah on what everybody else thinks and says and believes about Allah, but we take the time to come to Allah. And so Maybe you're sitting there and you're thinking, Zara, that's really all very nice and well, but what does that look like? What do you mean? How do I do this? And the answer is so basic. It's so simple that you might even get a little frustrated. You read the Quran. And you don't read it. You don't read it in Arabic unless you speak, the Arabic that the Quran is written in. You read it in your language. You read it in a language that you understand. You read it in a language that you speak. You read it in a language that makes the Quran make sense to you. And you read it with the intention, the niyyah of wanting to get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what you do. You don't just recite the Quran and hope that, the good vibes will get you there. If you don't know what you're reciting, and many of us have been also raised within that, right? Like, you've got to learn to recite the Quran. Alhamdulillah, mashallah, tabarakallah, good for you. I'm happy for you, truly I am. But if you don't know what you're reciting, it's just sounds. It's just sounds. You don't know what it means. You need to open Allah's book that He has given us so graciously, where He specifically tells us who He is. And there is no, I remember this specific conversation I had with one person who said, what if I read it wrong? What if I read the Quran wrong? There is no wrong way of reading it. But what if when I read it, I interpret it as such? Then you interpret it as such, because you can read the same ayah today and a week from now, and it will tell you two different things. That's the beautiful thing about the Quran. That is the beautiful thing about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He will meet us where we are. We don't even have to meet Him where He is, because we could never, but He will meet us where we are, meaning that we don't have to sit and analyze and everything. Sometimes we just have to open the book and be like, this is where I am today, and Allah will still find a way to make those words on the pages make sense for us, exactly the way they're meant to. So don't be scared of that. You don't need an imam to tell you exactly how and why and what and when you can literally just let Allah speak to your soul directly. The Quran was never meant to be given only for the imams and the scholars to tell everybody else about. It was given so every one of us could talk to Allah and get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when I'm telling you right now to open the Quran, again, it's not because I don't think you've never opened the Quran and sat down and read it, but because I want you to understand the significance of also finding a Quran that speaks your language, that is translated in a way that you understand what it says, to study it. We're not reading it like a fiction book. We're sitting down and we are studying it with an open heart, with an open soul, ready to receive and to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what we're doing. It took me, I think, 3 Qur'ans to find the one that actually, where I could understand it. The first one was in Danish, and I recognized I don't really do Danish at all anymore. And it didn't make sense to me. I could not for the life of me connect with the words. And so I got, I think, halfway through Surah Al-Baqarah, and I was like, yeah, this is not happening. I can't do it. And I put it aside again. Then I got another Quran translation from my dad, an English one. And I was going through it, and it was so old English that, like really formal, really old. And I was like, I can't read this either. This is like I can't understand every other word. And so again, I stopped reading that one. And then I found the one that I currently am reading still. It's the Quran Journal, the one that I'm also selling. You don't have to buy that one. By the way, this is not a pitch. If you want to get it. But that's not what I'm trying to say. But that was the one that spoke to me. That was the one that I could open up and I could understand what it was saying. And I could connect. And that's the important part. And so if you need to do it in Arabic, in English, in Polish, in, I don't know, I can't even think of any other languages right now, Spanish, I don't know. Find the language that makes sense to you when you're reading it and start connecting with Allah. Allah made Himself available to all of us through His book. And shamefully, truly shamefully, many of us don't take that opportunity to get to know Him through it. And instead, we trust everybody else instead to tell us who He is. So that is what I want to leave you with today. Don't outsource your relationship with Allah. Stop outsourcing it. You can ask questions, of course, here and there, but ultimately, when it comes to building that relationship with Allah, that connection with Allah, one-on-one, you and Him, meet Him where He told you He is. and that is the Quran, where he is explaining to you who he is. He tells you who he is. Black on white, it's right there. And let him speak to you, and then build your relationship from there. All right, my darling, that is what I had for you in today's episode. I hope that it was valuable to you. As usual, please go ahead and, contact me over on Instagram if you've got any feedback, you just want to speak to me, whatever. And also share this podcast and this episode with somebody on your social media, or whatever it might be. Help me spread this Ramadan series that I'm doing, inshallah. I will see you in tomorrow's episode. But until then, my darling friend, please don't forget to live in love.